Here's Gary, Pastor Goodson.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the afternoon. This is our second week talking about Gospel of Mark, Jesus' journey to the cross, and we're taking a deep dive into the Gospel of Mark. Well, as deep as we can get in the time that we have allotted for this. So, just a reminder of where we have come thus far, and also I want to remind you that we're used to, again, reading the Gospels in little bits and pieces as we hear them in church and whatnot. And I think it's important for what we're trying to do here is that you take the Gospel of Mark as you would a novel, a nonfiction novel. And the author has a certain, I believe, has a certain theme that runs through it and what he's trying to say and what he's trying to emphasize and lift up. Mark is our guide on this journey to Jerusalem, and Mark is the one who chose what to lift up, what to talk about, and what not to. So we should maybe pay attention to maybe what Mark is trying to tell us. So ignore all the chapters and verses and the headings that they put in your Bible and just read it as you would a novel or nonfiction novel, and try to see if that gives you a little more deeper insight into what Mark is trying to talk about. Okay, here we go. So, week 2, Jesus' journey to Jerusalem. Last week, remember, we got to what I call the apex of Mark's gospel, Peter's confession. After all of this that they've seen up to Mark 8:27, Jesus with his stupendous teaching, people are amazed at his authority. Jesus with his power to heal and to cast out demons. And in every debate Jesus has with the religious officials of his day, he comes out on top. This guy's special. And so when we get to 827, we have an expectation maybe when Jesus asks the question, well, who do you say that I am, of what the answer might be. And certainly Peter in Mark's gospel saw all that Jesus was doing. Who do people say that I am? You are the Messiah. Now, Jesus tells Peter, let's not talk about this. And really, one of the features of Mark's gospel we didn't talk about is that Jesus tells the evil spirits who know who he is to be quiet. He tells the people that he heals not to tell people about what he's done. Uh, uh, you know, yes, he's the Messiah and he accepts Peter's designation, but there's so much baggage in that day and time what it means to be a Messiah. And that's why Jesus thought it was so important to, okay, you're right, Peter, and here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go up to Jerusalem, I'm going to be crucified, and on the third day I will rise. And and already I think we see that that's not what Peter was expecting of a Messiah, and certainly that's not what the people that Jesus has been teaching to are expecting. And that's why Peter rebukes Jesus. It's not what you're supposed to be about. And that's where you have that first prediction. Remember, uh, this is what's going to happen. And then the first teaching on discipleship. You deny yourself, uh, pick up your cross, and follow me. And what we find from Mark 8:27 all the way through chapter 10 is that Jesus 3 times will tell his disciples what's going to happen to him in Jerusalem. 3 times the disciples are going to somehow misunderstand it or don't quite hear what Jesus is talking about. And the third thing you'll see in all these passion predictions is a teaching on what it means to be a disciple. So that I think is the center point of this section as we roll through Jerusalem, because Jesus is headed to the cross and he wants his disciples to understand what it means for him and what it means for discipleship. So here we go. As we recall, immediately after that first teaching on discipleship, Jesus takes three of his disciples up to the Transfiguration Mountain, and we see God confirming that. This is my beloved son, listen to him. Remember, Peter gets all caught up in the glory and the wonder. He says, let's stay here. Let's build three booths. This is a perfect place. And of course, that's not what Jesus has planned. And they head back down the mountain. That's where we start. Okay, they head back down the mountain. The first thing, they were all kind of caught up in this Messiah thing. And they start questioning Jesus. Well, isn't Elijah supposed to be the forerunner? And Jesus says, yeah. And I'll tell you, uh, uh, he has come, and they did to him whatever they pleased. It says in Mark, as it is written about him. Again, uh, talking about John the Baptist, and Mark tells us what happened to John the Baptist. He lost his head over the whole thing. So after that, we have healing of the boy with an evil spirit. And of course, you get down from the mountain of transfiguration, and you have all these wonderful things rolling through your head, and now they're back on the ground, where the rubber meets the road. And here are sick people. Here are people with evil spirits. Here are people who maybe aren't quite your friend, and they're confronted with this evil spirit that the disciples who they couldn't lick. And Jesus is able to do it. And he says it's to be done in prayer. We get so, we get so eager to exert our power and what we can do. And I think Jesus is telling you, slow down. Take your time. Know that it's not your power. It's God's power. Okay. So now, after that, we get to Jesus's second prediction. Let me read it to you. They went from there and passed through Galilee. He did not want anyone to know it, for he was teaching his disciples. See, remember what the voice from the cloud say? Listen to him. So he's teaching his disciples, saying to them, the Son of Man is to be betrayed into the hands of men, and they will kill him, and after 3 days, he will rise again. And it says they do not understand what he was saying. It's the second time he said it. They don't understand. Very next verse. Then they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, well, what were you arguing about on the way? And they were silent. For on the way, they argued about who was the greatest. Who was the greatest? All this talk about going to the cross and you must deny yourself and pick up your cross and follow. It's like the disciples aren't hearing. Who's greatest? And it's I guess, Dave, you can stop me if I'm wrong, but we are all, I think, it's very human to be concerned about our status, isn't it? In whatever group we might be in. It might be a group of pastors. How many times have you been in a group of pastors meeting and it's a little jockeying for position. Sometimes it's very subtle. I know from my Army time that promotion is a big deal. That's a sign that you are at least better than somebody. And that's in a way, it's a human failing, don't you think?
Yeah, it's kind of like dog eat dog.
Yeah.
I mean, it's trying to be king of the hill, like the old Dr. Seuss story, Yertle the Turtle,
Mm-hmm.
kept on wanting to get higher and higher and higher, but unaware that it was the bottom that was holding up the top.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think you've got to, what I keep thinking about is how topsy-turvy Jesus is. I mean, like you were talking about on the sermon, the Transfiguration, and how bold that was. I mean, like you were saying, it had to have been an amazing experience for the disciples to see Jesus transfigured. I mean, that's magic.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, it
the
is.
voice, the voice from heaven,
Yeah.
this is my beloved son, listen to him. I mean, those are powerful, powerful, powerful stories, powerful experience. And like you were saying, disciples wanted to build booths, they wanted to tap into the power.
I
If
kind of
we,
want to hang here. It would be
yeah,
great. Yeah.
we want to make this the center, and we'll have people coming in. I mean, kind of use a modern house
Yeah.
analogy. We'll have a visitor center over here, and we'll have a parking lot over here, and we'll put a restaurant over here, and this will be the booths. This is where you can to see where it really happened. I mean, it's all about showing off their own power by, hey,
Hmm.
kind of like, look who I know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, and Jesus says, no, don't tell anybody. Why? And you point this out because you have it all wrong.
Hmm.
You,
You have,
you messed this
yeah,
up.
we're following
You don't, I
Jesus,
mean, don't go calling me, you know, you'll just misinterpret it because you're not going to
Yeah.
know anything about, you're getting at this, what it means to Messiah until you see the cross.
Yeah. It's so stark. Jesus,
Yeah.
here's what's going to happen. And, they're jockeying for position.
Yeah.
It's just a contrast. And I think, Mark did that intentionally. The transfiguration, having to go back down the hill to the grubbiness of human life where the cross is going to happen, you know, and then Jesus reminds them of what's going to happen. And, they're still stuck, I think, up there at the Transfiguration Mountain. Who's the greatest? You know, who's the greatest? I think,
Which is human nature. I mean, we all want to think we're on top.
yeah,
It's really
yeah,
turtle, and and we see it so profoundly in our world, don't we? We see it in our
hmm,
families, we see it in our neighborhoods, we see it in our communities, who's in, who's out, who's on
yeah.
top, who's not.
Who's up, who's down?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
really, if you watch some of the shows about, the White House, you see all the political intrigue.
yeah.
And, it's everywhere, trying to be on top. And
Like my brother used to say, it's a dog eat dog world, and puppies don't make it.
yeah, that's right.
Uh,
And
so the teaching,
how do we understand Jesus in the context of power, of being on top when he definitely winds up on the bottom? I mean,
well, it's I and we can recognize it in that day and time. Uh, uh, all of us in America, we have this rather large middle class where we all have the trappings of a comfortable life. In Jesus' day, the upper crust was very small, and everybody else was striving for position on the bottom. There's very little in the middle. Uh, so Jesus is taking his and has always taken his stand there on the bottom, where the people are, where the child with the evil spirit that no one can handle, where the sickness and the hurt and the pain is, and the disciples aren't quite there yet, aren't quite catching. And as we continue, we'll see this. Um,
because
but the
like the bottom holds up the top,
Yeah,
and really, it's where the joy is anyway.
yeah,
I keep one of the movies that was so popular, Titanic, which really was a clash of classes, right? You had first class versus
hmm,
steerage. and the woman, the high class woman, breaks out of the high class and falls in love with someone who's of lower class
Hmm.
and goes into steerage and sees all the fun and the common love and fellowship those people have. And I think that is what Jesus is pointing to us, that
Hmm.
the real winners of life are really the people on the bottom
Hmm.
who
And
keep digging.
Jesus goes on
Uh,
uh, after the argument about who's greatest. He says, "Well, okay, whoever wants to be first
yeah,
must be
there
last
you go.
and a servant to all," which kind of is what we're talking about. And really, it echoes what he said after Peter rebuked him. Deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me.
Uh,
Uh, uh, if you want to be a winner, you must, he's not saying be a loser, but you must uh, take that place. And the next thing he talks about is welcoming a child.
uh,
A child in that day and time, they truly children were to be seen and not heard.
they
Um,
didn't really were human beings until they did their bar mitzvah at 30.
yeah. So he's talking about welcoming. In fact, what he says is this: whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me
Uh,
welcomes not me, but the one who sent me. So a child all of a sudden is raised up, you know, and so that you can see and that you can care and you know, so it's not about who's greatest. It's about, well, he says servant to all.
yeah,
He says
servanthood.
servant to all. And I'm not real sure my Greek, I didn't look at it, but I think the word servant can also be translated slave.
Yeah,
And we also know how slaves were regarded in that day and time. So, um, very important, this teaching. Again, it follows the pattern. I think it continues Mark's emphasis
uh,
that, we're going to the cross, and this is what that means
it's gonna
for
be
those
learning, it's gonna be
who
learning about
follow me.
servanthood
Yeah.
and giving up
Um,
oneself. And and that is really where the joy of life is.
mhm.
I mean, if anything marked this journey we're doing to the cross, it'll teach us a lot of things. But one thing it really teaches us is, it's washing the dishes.
Yeah.
It's making,
Or what the text last
yeah,
for the narrative lectionary was washing
yeah,
feet. Um,
right.
there's a big section on teaching about divorce, which is, it's always been a discussion amongst people, church-going people, especially those who have been divorced. What did Jesus teach? Um, Jesus says in that day and time, a woman had no rights save what her husband would give her. So if you're married to your husband, he decides that you burn the meal, and so he could basically write up a bill of divorce, it says, and send the young lady on her way. So what does Jesus say about that? Uh, Jesus said, because of your hardness of heart, he wrote this commandment. You write a bill of divorce and send her away. And then he goes all the way back to creation. I hate it when he does that. Because of your hardness of heart. But from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. The two become one flesh. So they're no longer two, but one. Therefore, what God has joined together, what no one uh, uh, put asunder. Um, divorce is a reality in our day and time. I remember a young lady in one of my churches asked me, "Pastor, is divorce a sin?" And I had to tell her, yes, as there are a lot of sins that we get tripped up in. Just text before this, it talks about temptations to sin. They're all over. They are all over. So what do you do? What do you I think from what I see from the Bible is a bit, you acknowledge the sin and you ask forgiveness. And I think the flip side of that is, and it's so much against the way the American way of divorce, is that it's very antagonistic and it can lead to much conflict. And there's a possibility, and I've often taught this in couples classes. There's always a possibility of reconciliation, even in the midst of divorce.
Yeah. Well, you mean scripture is
Reconciliation
law and gospel,
and
right?
forgiveness. So,
Law,
and that's,
gospel.
and if we get caught up again, right after that, disciples are arguing about who's greatest. Uh, can it be that those kind of attitudes seep their way into marriages,
Yeah.
into relationships, and that
And
can
how we look at
poison
those who are
relationships?
divorced too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Uh,
So,
Instead of being
um,
compassionate and kind and helping people find their dignity or self-worth again, we just condemn them. And
and
that's
in an antagonistic
right.
relationship, it can lead to a lot of backbiting and hurting and
Yeah.
pain, and that all gets into that we are uh, jockeying for position even in our
Yeah.
relationships. Who's the
So,
greatest?
and
Jesus said, "Well, first we must be last and a servant to
the
all."
the
How
married
one,
are not better than the
yeah,
divorced. What you're saying.
yeah, yeah, but
Also,
hopefully,
I see too, it's important to say that a legal divorce is different than emotional divorce. There are a lot of couples who are legally married but
yeah,
emotionally divorced. They don't get
yeah,
along, they fight, they don't see each other, they have no
yeah,
intimacy. I mean, it's not just a piece of paper.
yeah.
And
Well,
sometimes a piece of paper is just admitting the
yeah,
reality.
I,
And
I think
God's
though,
grace again lifts
yeah,
all that, heals all that, and gives new beginnings to people.
in the midst of these, obviously discipleship uh, is important. Discipleship, even in terms of relationships,
Hmm.
in terms of how we value each other, whether it be in marriage or whether it be good friends,
Right.
um, and how that jockeying for position, who's greatest, can be a poison that makes things kind of fall apart.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it's Mark intentionally puts this teaching on divorce here to remind us that what he's been talking about, this heading to the cross and what that means for our lives is 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 so important, and it should interpenetrate every part of our life. Disciples, I don't think have figured that out. You know, Here, the
Do
second
we?
prediction. Who's greatest? Oh, and Jesus kind of holding a mirror to them. So that was the second prediction,
Yeah.
as Jesus knows full well what's going to happen up in Jerusalem, and he's hoping that somewhere along the way, his disciples catch on.
Like we will.
Like, well, I would say, Dave, that over the 2,000 years of Christianity, we are still trying to
That's right.
catch on.
Holy Spirit is always
Yeah.
leading us to new things.
Okay.
All right,
So
but enjoy it. Yeah.
next week we have yet the last of the predictions and another teaching on discipleship. It ought to be a lot of fun.
It has been. I enjoy talking about these
Yeah.
things. So thank y'all for listening, and
Yeah.
we look forward to seeing you. If you can, like, share, subscribe to this little podcast to help promote it in the virtual world. We're just, to use one of Pastor Goodson's illustrations, we're just a tiny blue dot
We are.
in the great universe
We
of
are.
the but we're still a dot, and we still share God's good news with everybody.
Hmm.
All right, so we will see you later.
Bye bye.